Hello everybody, Walters954 here. I have a really interesting video for all of you, and if you haven't seen some of my other videos that I've been releasing recently, it's been on pushing the limits of Salesforce and doing some really interesting development. So I have a really interesting friend for us to here today to show us something that he's built on the Salesforce platform, and that is Pat Patterson. So you may have seen him around, maybe at Dreamforce, maybe in some of his videos that he's done. So Pat, how are you doing today? How's everything going?
It's going great. I'm really excited to kind of resurrect this whole thing and share it with you. It's probably the biggest impact I had in my 5.5 years at Salesforce.
Awesome. Well, if you guys didn't know, Pat has made a little game. I'll do that little in air quotes. A little game called. Well, he's worked on an integration or a little game in Minecraft to integrate with Salesforce, and he's going to be going over it in much more elegance today with us and sharing his thought process. And I'll be asking some questions as well as he goes along through that process. So, Pat, I'll say take it away. What are we working with here today?
Thanks, Warren. So just a little bit of context before I kind of jump into the game and the code. I was a developer evangelist at Salesforce from 2010 to 2016. Working in Dave Carroll's developer evangelism team. So in that time, I did 6 Dreamforces. I was part of the team that put together the developer zone. And it was kind of a tradition that Dreamforce is all-consuming, right? It basically is your job for 3 months of the year. You know, the 3 months before Dreamforce, it's completely focused on that 1 week. And then Dreamforce happens. And then pretty much everybody like in that kind of core team gets the next week off. And it was the week after Dreamforce 2013 where, you know, it got to about Wednesday or Thursday and the house was vacuumed and the laundry was done. And, you know, I'd kind of run out of stuff to do. And, you know, my mind went back to a kind of a joke comment that Brian Kwong, Salesforce wizard, had made on the Salesforce IRC channel. Kind of, I was building mods for Minecraft. So Minecraft, I'm going to guess that pretty much everyone on this call is aware of what Minecraft is, and if you're not, you'll see it in a couple of minutes. So. Yeah, it's written in Java, and that made it very amenable to modification. So there's this kind of Minecraft mod community, and I'd been building mods with my kids to do things like add weapons to the game and add materials. I work with one of my boys. I've got 2 boys. Worked with one of my boys to create a pie sword that did 3.14 hit points of damage or whatever.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the apple did not fall far from the tree. So, and then I'd been sharing this on the Salesforce IRC channel. It was as much a place. It was like a virtual water cooler, pretty much, in the community at that time. And Brian Kwong, Salesforce wizard, kind of jokingly said, "Oh, you should figure out a way to do this modding thing and get paid for it. You know, maybe hook up to Salesforce somehow." And you know, in this like looking for something to do in this time off, you know, the kids are at school. My wife was working. And I thought back to that comment, and I'd read, I'm a big fan of cyberpunk science fiction. Mm-hmm. So William Gibson, Neil Stephenson, that kind of neuromancer, cyberspace. And it occurred to me that in neuromancer, corporations are represented in cyberspace by buildings. You're moving through this virtual reality world, and that's populated with buildings and avatars for people. And it occurred to me that I could take the accounts from a Salesforce org and represent those as buildings. And then, okay, so what does that mean? Like, you know, what does the building look like? And then I thought, well, one measure of the importance of a customer to an organization is how many opportunities there are. So if I made 1 floor per opportunity, you know, the higher the most important accounts would stand out. And, you know, on this video, so what you can see right now is the GitHub page for ForceCraft. And you can see exactly that. This is trying to think which one it is now. One of the developer edition accounts that's got like, I don't know, 10 opportunities on it, probably Edge Communications or something like that.
United,
United Oil and Gas, one of those guys. And then, it kind of naturally followed on from there. And it's probably easiest if I just go in and show you.
Yeah,
so
let's jump into it.
So unfortunately, I did this work 6 years ago. And so you need an old version of Minecraft. So Minecraft's at like 1.15 right now. So, and it was at 1.72. But the nice thing is that this is all still around. And so in prep for this video, I just pulled the bits off the web and, installed them, and the modding framework, which is called Forge, that I'll get onto in a few minutes. And what's going on now is that Minecraft is starting up, and I've started up in this mode where you can see all the debug output. And that's kind of quite deliberate because you'll get some insight into what's going on. Now, I'm going to say single player, and I'm going to create a new world so we can start from scratch.
Cool.
And let's call it Warren.
Awesome.
I'm going to change to creative mode so that we can do what we like.
And while you get this set up, one thing I do want to call out is if you want to check out ForceCraft or any of the other links to maybe Pat's website and his LinkedIn page, you can definitely see those in the description down below. And you'll be able to hopefully follow along with some of the stuff that we're doing here.
I don't know, Warren. I don't see any description on my screen, but there you go. So let's create our world. So and this right now, this is pretty much vanilla Minecraft. But what we should start seeing, so it's spawning, creating the spawn area, all of that good stuff. But what's going to happen very soon is, so I'm in. Got to remember the keys now. You use the mouse, don't you? So I'm in vanilla Minecraft, and this is like, you should be familiar to people here. But if I do /login, then what's going to happen is I enter the ForceCraft dimension. Now, it's like Minecraft is organized into dimensions, got the overworld and so on. And this is ForceCraft. And if I kind of go away and I fly up and turn around, what I've done here, so in that picture on GitHub, there's like 400 accounts. This is really a vanilla developer edition. So I've got like, I don't know, what is it? 16, a handful more than the normal. I've played around in this developer edition. But you can see already, and you can hear the tranquil music maybe a little bit. You can see already that we've got this kind of layout. So what I've done, if I go across to my little output and scan up a bit, what we can see is scroll. Where's the little handle there? Okay. So what we should be able to see, we go up, we can, if you've got quick eyes, you can probably recognize some of these grand hotels, blah, 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 blah.
And it does look like we got a bunch of data in here.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. So we are logging into Salesforce. So that's kind of like the user record there. And then we're issuing a query, and I can show you this in a little bit more palatable form. But this is basically a query through the REST API for all of the accounts with their associated opportunities and contacts. And then, this is what comes through here. So we've got good old Rose Gonzalez, Sean Forbes. We've got Edge Emergency Generator there. So all of this data's coming through the REST API. And then what happens is Minecraft works in an interesting kind of way. I read that data in through the REST API. I subscribe for some streaming API push topics there. So opportunities there. I want to know about every opportunity as it's created. So I do all that. And then basically my mod just sits there. And what happens is that when you enter a chunk in Minecraft, so a chunk is, I think, 64 by 64 blocks by 255 high. Minecraft actually calls your code to say what should be in this chunk. And that's where I look at the data that I have and I reply, okay, well, there's this block at this location, this block at this location. And if you can see, I set out the accounts in a kind of a square pattern. And it's actually called a discrete spiral. So it's a spiral starting from the middle with square edges. So like my first iteration had them all in a row. And then like that looks pretty crappy. So, I figured I could have this like town thing. And this is what I ended up with. So yeah, let's explore. So if I go there and fall out of the sky,
let's figure out what are these. What are the floors for?
We could take a look at that. Like, while I'm here, these are Minecraft villagers, and they have pretty much all regular villager AI. And so this is Andy Young, who's a contact. You could go to the chatter feed, but it's been a long time. So let's open the door. I have to do go right up to it. Is it right click?
It's most likely right click.
Oh, there we go. I can just smash my way through.
Just break it.
And I've gone full screen as well, unintentionally, but hey, that's good. So what we can see is each floor here is an opportunity. And if you've played in your developer org, United Oil, Office, Portable Generators, it's in negotiation review. These switches correspond to the stages that an opportunity can be in.
Gotcha.
And they're actually linked through the REST API. So, for the purposes of this demo, an opportunity can never go backwards. But what I'm going to do is how do I get out? Escape. Let's bring this, back down to
normal size.
Knock it back down to size, because we want to have the actual org next to it. So if we go to United Oil Office Portable Generators, so if I go into Salesforce, portable generators, and if I was super slick, I'd have figured this out in advance. But United Oil Office Portable Generators, there we go. So this is the opportunity we're seeing. And if you can see, it's in negotiation review. So I can do things like over here, I should be able to click that. And then if I go over here, and I have to refresh because Salesforce isn't expecting this to happen.
No way.
But it goes back to proposal price quote.
That's crazy.
Okay, so now the really neat thing is, so I could explore this. There's John Bond. I could go upstairs to another
so that's opportunity levels,
yeah. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the kind of bidirectionality of this by going back to here, and so did you see the switch flip?
That was really quick, but yeah,
that's the streaming API. So the streaming API is actually, it didn't let me do that because it's a dumb thing to do. The streaming API is actually super fast. So I can say mark negotiation review, and so I'm going to say closed. So what happened is Arthur Song, a contact from that account, appeared and said, "Congratulations, opportunity closed." And what actually happened? It happened so quickly. He dropped gold and gems to the value of that opportunity.
Wow!
So it was $125,000. So I figured out some exchange rate. So I guess that's 1 emerald, 2 gold, and 5 whatever that commodity is there.
You have some kind of conversion in there.
$125,000.
It's really cool.
And I had to change the AI because like this guy would just run off somewhere after dropping it. So I changed it so he sticks around for a little bit. But let's actually. Whoa. They've got me surrounded here. So let's actually go outside and let's say time set 0. Let's change it to it's going to be like morning and go up a little bit. And let's see what happens when it's a bad day in ForceCraft land and we lose an opportunity. So we could go to another one here. So if I go into my opportunities, United Oil SLA.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, somebody made a mistake. It was actually supposed to be closed lost.
Darn it.
So
lost that deal.
Yeah, we lost it. We kind of misinterpreted the message. And if you notice here, I don't know if you can see.
Oh, is it starting to rain?
and it starts to rain, right?
Wow.
And there'll be thunder and lightning because it's just a sad day.
It's a
in
gloomy day
ForceCraft
for
land
sure.
when that happens. And then I'll show you one more thing before we dive into the code, because again, it's like I sweated blood over this, and I get to drive this and tell you what you're going to see.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go up. So this is University of Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, chatter! There must be another key to do chatter. I had chatter working, so it would show the chatter feed. Oh, there's an iron golem. So this was something I never overrode. So if you have enough villagers and enough doors in the same place, so it's like Minecraft decides there's a village there, it spawns these iron golems to protect the villagers from like zombies and stuff. But anyway, so one thing I never did was override that, but I kind of like it.
Mm-hmm.
So where was that? University of Arizona we were just looking at?
Yep.
Can you remember? Yeah. Okay. So let's go to U of A over here. So University of Arizona, and let's create a new opportunity. So the way to do that, the fastest way is to say clone, and we'll put this one in prospecting and call it portable generators 2. And okay, so as I click save, keep your eye on the left there. So I hit save there, and what happens is,
whoa, it's just materializing like that.
Yeah. So what I did was I put the list of blocks into a list and just randomized the order of the list.
Wow.
So that you could get that effect, and now it's all hooked up, and I can do the thing again and say, okay, well, we identified the decision makers, and go across and refresh, and it's all working.
Very slick. Very slick.
So this was just filling in a little bit of the story before we go into the code. I showed this to Dave Carroll, my boss, and Dave, one of the best managers I've had in my career. He was always encouraging us to think outside the box, take some time to think of new things we could do with Salesforce. But even so, I took this in the next week and showed it to Dave, and I was expecting him to say, "Oh, that's cute," and he was all over it. It was like, "Oh, wow, this is great! It's the power of the platform. You can hook, if you can integrate Salesforce with Minecraft, you can integrate it with anything."
Yeah, you can.
So
you can
he
dream
was
it up.
like,
"It's gonna be there.
Blog this, make a video, get it out there as soon as you can." And I did that, and I ended up. I went to Salesforce. Don't know if they still do. They had an executive kickoff in Las Vegas. And so I went to that, and Mike Rosenbaum, who at the time ran the Salesforce platform, he gave his state of the platform address. And so I had the last 3 minutes of that driving this demo as Mike did the talk track.
Wow.
And so I hope I'm not violating my well, you don't have contracts. California's an at-will state, but hope I'm not violating confidentiality by saying, we did this video, we did the same demo, and Mike said, "So I'm not sure if you should show this to the CIO." And Mark Benioff, who has a microphone all the way through the presentations, you can imagine, he just has carte blanche to jump in, leans forward into Microsoft and says, "Actually, Mike, every CIO should see this." I was just like, yes. So and then I presented the making of. I did a making of video, presented the making of at Dreamforce 2014, and then it kind of there was a, I don't remember the gentleman's name. There was a solutions engineer at Financial Force that adapted the code to PSA. I put it on GitHub. It's all there, and it kind of it became just a thing. But if you're watching this, then you probably know about Trailhead, and you've been through Trailhead. Salesforce actually used the video, put the video on the Trailhead API page, and now it's got 250,000 views.
There you go.
It's just this crazy thing that ended up being the most, like I say, the most impact I had in 5.5 years at the company. And you can get a sense of my music taste there as well. So.
Got good taste.
Anyway.
But yeah, this is the one that I had seen originally, and I'm super glad that we're able to dive into it.
And if you're a developer, then this is cool. I find it hard to say things like this because I'm English, but this is cool. But the the Dreamforce 2014 session is still up.
Yep.
This is even better because it goes through a lot of the stuff that I'm about to show you.
Yep.
So should we get dirty? Dive into the code?
Let's jump into
it. Semicolons and curly braces.
There you go.
All right. So here we are in IntelliJ, and this is currently my favored IDE. So this is the entry point, and I'm using a framework called Forge.
Okay.
And so you can see some of these imports here and this mod annotation. And this is one way of extending Minecraft. There are different ways, but Forge certainly at the time was the leading way. And there's a lot of instructions here. And what Forge actually does is it decompiles the Minecraft code, and it gives you a bunch of classes to manipulate Minecraft, and a framework to load your mod into the game. And then the build process that it provides is in Gradle. It actually packages up, it compiles your mod, wraps it into a jar, and then re-obfuscates everything so that it can be loaded into the game, into Minecraft. So what you're seeing here is, your starting point, and if anybody's written a mod, they all look kind of like this. You get these events. So when the server's starting, we want to register these commands. So we've got the login. We've also got log out to go back to the overworld. We've registered this teleporter. That's what the piece of code that takes us around. And then this pre-init event handler, we actually need some custom materials. And this is where I said, I was playing around with my kids making, I don't know, chocolate smoothies or whatever. You get to specify your own blocks in Minecraft. So I'm creating a new block called stage block. So it's going to be associated with an opportunity stage. So that's what's on the wall here behind these switches, because it needs to have a bit of state. I actually need to have the name of the stage and a link to the opportunity so that when you throw the switch, something's going to happen. So I say, okay, it looks like rock. This is boilerplate hardness, the sound if you break it. But then I register like this tile entity. And what I can do is go into the code over here. So the stage block, it's got the code here to say, okay, when a neighboring block changes. So these are all kind of set side by side. This does the toggle effect, right? Because when you flick one of these, I need to go click on here and go closer.
Yeah, it's going to pop the other one.
It pops the other one up, yeah.
Oh.
Where is it? Oh, there you go. The curse of demo strikes. Okay, you saw it work once.
Yep.
Not sure why it's working. Anyway, what's supposed to happen is it flicks the other one. So this is really where that logic is. Turn off the lever, turn off the stage block, blah, 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 blah. If it has power. So there's a bunch of logic here 6 years ago, so I don't remember the details. But then over here on the tile entity, this is so the block, all the blocks work the same. The tile entities have state. So they're where you actually kind of have the opportunity ID. And then there's code here to actually call, you end up writing to the API. But kind of going back to the main entry point, this is all the kind of startup code. But this is where we kind of started seeing that trace on the screen. So we're saying, okay, we've got a new ForceCraft client, a class I wrote, and we can log in. So I kind of have this in a config file, the login.salesforce.com, username, password, and we get the ID. So that was that little call you saw with the user ID. And then we get the accounts and the stages. So if we go across to REST client, again, we can see here, what I wanted to show here was really the nuts and bolts of logging in to Salesforce. And I just shared the client ID and secret, which I think is in GitHub anyway.
Yeah, I was about to say, naughty.
Yeah, I know. I spent 5.5 years telling people to put these in environment variables, and there it is on the screen. Yeah, if you want to type that in, then have at it. It's not going to get you very far. Anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm creating I'm getting all the parameters together to do that OAuth 2 login. And I really wanted to show at the nuts and bolts level that OAuth 2 is not this kind of mysterious magic. You're really just doing a form post and getting back a response. And again, the mod logs all of this detail because it's as much a teaching aid as it is it's more a teaching aid than the game, let's face it.
Wow.
And it gets the response back, and it has this OAuth thing that's some JSON that you can then use later. So once you logged in, get the account. So this is the query that I'm talking about. And again, the kind of the didactic aim here was to be able to show I can rip all of this data out of Salesforce in a single API because I've got nested subqueries.
Yeah, I see 2 subqueries on there.
Right. So I'm saying, okay, from the account. So another kind of do as I say, not as I do. In a real production org, you probably don't want to be doing an unqualified select on account. You want some where clauses there.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a toy, and I know I'm using a dev org. So I like saying from account, give me every account, give me the name, the ID, whether or not it's deleted. Okay, because I want that information as well. Can't remember offhand. I think I was going to blow the building up if it was deleted. So I don't know if I ever got around to that. But then for each account, these are these subqueries. Give me the ID, name, amount, blah, 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 from opportunities. So I'm just getting the information I need to represent in the game and no more, because obviously opportunities has a bunch more fields. I'm really just optimizing things here down to just the fields that I need. Order by created date. So I want some ordering there. And the same thing for the contacts. I'm just getting ID and name. I don't need anything else from the contacts. And then, so I got that query into a string. And, the REST API, I've broken out the version here so that I could update it more easily. But really, I'm just doing a get on a URL that ends in query, question mark, Q equals, and then the encoding of that query. So you just get that, and you just get back a bunch of JSON, and I just turn it into a string. I throw it at the log, and then I parse that into a bunch of nodes, and really that's what that thing does. And I've got some more code here, but it really follows this pattern of I'm just getting some information. Now, the only other thing to show you here really is setting the opportunity stage. So I called that from over here somewhere there, set opportunity stage.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that is really just, in this case, it's, let me think now, a patch, I think, and I'll see. Oh, no, it's a post. Oh, yeah, it is a patch. Sorry, my mistake. So yeah, you use HTTP post, but you tell it it's a patch. That's just the library I was using at the time. That's how you had to do it. But logically, it's a patch. And then what you're doing is, and this is the beauty of REST. Actually, I've seen a lot of these APIs, and I no longer have any kind of vested interest. I'm not even a Salesforce shareholder anymore. The Salesforce REST API is pretty well structured, and it's really nicely structured and really nicely defined. And it is a true RESTful API in the sense that resources have a URL, so version,sobjects, opportunity, and then the opportunity ID, and you effect change using the HTTP verbs. So in this case, we're using patch to say we want to overwrite some of the fields on this opportunity. And this is a real boon for developers, because this paradigm means that you can go from one REST API to another, and you've got a set of expectations about how it should work. And if it's a well-designed API, then those expectations are met. And then really, this is how OAuth works. We add this header, the bearer header with the access token that we got earlier on. And then we have this handler that says, what happened. And we just log that to the screen, just execute the post, and on we go. So yeah, that's the REST
Mechanisms
interaction.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
So once you've got that list of accounts and opportunities and contacts in memory, this is where Minecraft calls into my code. So you'll recall, game starts up, we're in the overworld, we do a call to get the state, and then we're dormant. It's only when we log in to the ForceCraft dimension that Minecraft starts calling us, and it says load chunk. So this is the public method. So this is the one that these are the methods that Minecraft's going to be calling. And so Minecraft's just saying, okay, this is where the user's looking. This is within the render distance. So I need the data. Tell me what's here. So I've got to generate this chunk object. And what I do is I say, okay, I need to generate some terrain. And then here, I'm just saying, okay, everything's at ground level. So this is creating that checkered backdrop of saying, there's bedrock, there's dirt, there's gravel, there's obsidian. But then I also have to do some buildings. So they are over in ForceCraft generator. And so I've got this. Let me see. Where's the real horror start? Yeah, I've got this. This is pretty neat. This was like ripped straight out of Stack Overflow, but I acknowledge my sources. This was to figure out the discrete spiral stuff. So I'm looking at a position. Is there which account in the list is there? So given an X and Y, this gives you a number. So first account, second account, so on. And then, here we go. So generate a building. So Minecraft, we're down in the call stack here. Minecraft has said, okay, I'm working with a world and I'm looking at this chunk. And you've got to kind of populate it with buildings. So I say, okay, where am I in the discrete spiral? And then, so I made it easy on myself. A building occupies one chunk. So 16 by 16 blocks. That made the math super easy. But then I've got this code and it goes into this generating levels and roofs. And yeah, it gets pretty wacky because here. So there's an easier way to do this. But at the time, I knew how to set a single block. And I never went back and figured out how to say, I want a wall here. All I knew what to do was say, I want a block at location PQR, so like XYZ coordinates, what it's made from, and a bit of metadata. So I have a triple nested loop here.
Oh man, it's okay. This is a long time ago.
Dimensions and the Z dimension to figure out from a set of conditions whether we're in the wall or the window or the side windows.
Somebody from the community, we're going to need to check this one out.
It's horrible, but it worked, right?
That's all that matters in the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, so I sat down, I sketched out what this should look like, and this is exactly the code that does it, and it's pretty much write-only code, right? You can't look at this and figure out anything. I wasn't gonna say the S word there because you don't want to have the not suitable for children tag on YouTube. And there's the opportunity name. So we put the sign there. So my subclass of a Minecraft sign, and we're gonna set the sign to the name and tag it with the ID. So really, once you've got your head around how Minecraft mod works, how Minecraft mods work, and the kind of Minecraft the Forge interface. So this is all provided by Forge, these APIs. It's just wiring it together, and it was like sitting down with my kids, my two boys, and saying, what would work here? Oh, you could use carpet and put in like a checkerboard pattern, and like, how can I create a staircase? Oh, you want this, wooden L shape, and they gave me a lot of input here, and I think I put in the closed one thing, and they suggested closed lost the
Making it
the
rain.
rainstorm.
Very cool.
So yeah, I mean, and at this point, you've seen pretty much all of it. Oh, the streaming API.
I do want to get into that. You go to some of your why you decided to go with the streaming API versus just calling doing the call on REST again.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So and I'll give you a little bit more kind of background information here. So after I left Salesforce, I went to a company called Streamsets, and they make a tool for building data pipelines. So you can read data from a wide variety of origins. So it could be relational databases, Kafka, Salesforce, what have you. Build a pipeline that transforms the data. And then there are a number of destinations you could write to, and usually analytical kind of systems. So Hadoop, or another relational database, or Snowflake. So the goal here is, data's rarely being created in the same system that you want for analysis. Analytical systems have very different characteristics from operational databases, and so there are a number of ways that you can get a stream of data. Now, kind of you alluded to, you could just keep querying, right? You could, and that's called an incremental query, because what you're doing is you want to find some offset, like a high watermark of where you read to last time. So you read those 12 accounts, and you maybe save the last updated date or last created date would probably be adequate. And then you periodically run a query to say, select blah, blah, blah from account where last created date is greater than, and then you substitute in your high watermark from last time. Okay. And that works pretty well. But polling, you've always got a trade-off between the freshness of the data and the amount of load you're putting on the system. You're literally consuming an API call with every one of those. So if you want it super fresh and you wanted the experience that you just saw in ForceCraft with incremental queries, you'd be querying every second and burning 86,400 queries a day. Just doing that. And that's, you don't have to have done much trailhead to realize that's not a good idea. And so, back, I think in about 2017, 2018, while I was at, no, it couldn't have been that recent. Sorry, 2012, 2013. While I was at Salesforce, they introduced this streaming API, and you set up what's called a push topic. And a push topic has a query that basically you're saying, when the results of this query change, I need to know about it. So the query might be super specific, select ID name from opportunity where opportunity state is closed 1 and amount is greater than 100,000 and blah, blah, blah. Or it could be just select ID name from account, period. And that's obviously what I want to do here. I want to have a very wide query. And what's going to happen is Streaming API uses a protocol called Bayer, like the Bayer tapestry. Which, if you don't know, it's a fabulous piece of history. It's can't remember how long it is, like over 100 yards long, I think. And it's a tapestry, which is like a cloth hanging that's embroidered with the story of the Norman invasion of England in 1066. So this thing's literally nearly 1,000 years old. Anyway, Bayer is the name of the protocol. A little bit of history there. And we use Salesforce recommend you to use a Java library called CometD to access it, and you can actually see that in the URL here, CometD. And so we use that, and it's actually pretty interesting because what we want from Salesforce is a notification of every change. And logically, that's a push, right? Mm-hmm. But what you probably don't want to do is to have to set up an HTTP server and give Salesforce an endpoint and have Salesforce post to that endpoint and open that in your firewall. And like your IT department is not going to enjoy you opening a port in their firewall for that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So what the mechanism it uses is called HTTP long polling. And how this works is, so my code just says to the library, yeah, subscribe, whatever, make an HTTP client, add a listener, when their handshake is done, then I want to do this subscription. And then, when a message arrives, I want to take, this action. I want to say, okay, if it's successful, then hang on, where are we now? Here, this handler code down here for all of these things. So on a particular message, I print out some log data, and then down here somewhere, there's the one that will call through into the code when you flip a switch. Anyway, so the library does all that great stuff, and oh yeah, there it is, new account lister. So it's actually broken out into another class, but so that's hardly even worth going to, because it just receives a bit of JSON and calls the code to effect some change. So, but what's happening here is that this client library, the way this works is it makes an HTTP call to Salesforce and waits. And then after some timeout of the order of 30 seconds, 60 seconds or so, nothing's happened. So the client just drops the connection and makes a new one. And so this goes on. And sooner or later, something in Salesforce changes. And at that point, Salesforce will return immediately with that data. So if you like, you're doing a series, you're really under the covers polling, but the programming model is, this is all hidden by the library. So the polling model is, I get a notification when this happens, and you get that responsiveness. So inside Salesforce, you hit save on that opportunity, and within about half a second, that get returns data, and you can take action. So that's the and streaming API, there's a bit of mystique there, but once you actually understand what's going on, it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So really, that's the kind of tour of the code. And yeah, if I go into OpportunityListener here, over here, on a message, again, this is just super logical. You parse the message out. I didn't bother creating like classes to match the different messages. I just get it out into a hierarchy of nodes and just walk the hierarchy. So if you've used Apex's JSON parsing, you might kind of recognize this. I can't remember, parse untyped or whatever it is. I just walk the nodes and get the information, and then I can just go and play around and do whatever I like here. And this is just that code. So okay, which thing are we talking about here? And then here, this is nice. The opportunity doesn't seem to be on the account yet, so we call that add new level code. And I could go show it to you, but it's just the same old code to figure out what blocks you need, randomize the order, and stuff them into the world.
Wow.
So at this point, that's pretty much the code. You've seen behind the curtain, and the wizard is exposed.
Well, I think it's really interesting, and you've been able to, just even from sitting in this, teach me a lot of some of the best practices. Well, I won't say all of the best practices, but give us ideas on when to use streaming API versus REST, and some ways of setting up, and just giving us inspiration around like, hey, you can kind of build anything with Salesforce or integrate with just about anything, and they provide really good access points to get their data and things like that. So
I think that's one of the strengths of Salesforce, is that I'm pretty sure every byte of information you put into the system is accessible. And and you might think that that's a bad thing, because it means that people can pull their data out. But it's actually a good thing, because it actually frees up customers, because if you can always get your data, you're more likely to go in the first place.
Yeah. Makes total sense. It's not locked in, and if you ever need it, a lot of especially with what I work with, we have our Salesforce data here, but we have to integrate with some other system, SAP, the third parties, and anything like that. And it's always Salesforce makes it super flexible in what it's doing and giving you all the access to your data.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Pat, any last words? Tell us, this has been around for since 2014, you said, so you've resurrected it
Yeah,
a little bit here
yeah,
for us. So thank you for that.
yeah.
Real quick, any special code changes you needed to do to bring it back up to snuff?
Certainly, yeah. So there's a couple of things I want to mention. One is a couple of years ago, Salesforce introduced change data capture,
Mm-hmm.
and commonly known as CDC. So where with Streaming API, you have to register this push topic, which is like obviously an admin action, and you have to use this buyer protocol. It turned out that a lot of people don't need the selectivity that push topic gives them, and as in this case, I just want to know about every change.
Yeah.
And so what CDC gives you is you can just subscribe for everything on a given Salesforce object. So you might subscribe to account, and then you just get that stream of every change. And it's actually richer data. So you get the updates, deletes, and so on. And you get metadata with it, such as the transaction boundaries. So if you get a bunch of updates to accounts, you can actually see as the client which ones happened in the same transaction, which might be highly significant to you in your integration. So, if you were doing this today, I would say use the CDC rather than Streaming API. It uses exactly the same protocol, use exactly the same Comet D buyer technology. So, it's no easier or harder, but it's probably a better fit for your use case. And then the actual code change, yeah. So when you invited me to speak, it was super exciting, and but I thought, oh, is this even going to work? And I spun it up, and it absolutely did not work. The Streaming API thing just broke, and I did a bit of research, and this was actually a little bit disappointing because Salesforce has a great reputation for stability across versions.
Yep.
And that's why all of those REST API endpoints have the version in them, right? So that here, so that Salesforce can say, okay, well, you're calling version 29. That was the current version when I wrote this. So things have to happen this way.
Yep.
And you can have that stability with time. What happened in 2017 for the Winter 18 release? They broke that, which is a little disappointing. So that was and as I discovered, that seemed to be even if you were still connecting to the same API version, you needed to update your Comet D library. So I wrote this thing in 2013. 4 years later, Comet D, this didn't exist at the time. So we can see if I go into the code here and go into, where are we now? ForceCraft, bear with me, and then they keep moving things around in GitHub. It's in commits. There we go. So updated to build and work in 2020 that I did yesterday.
Sweet.
So if we go in there, we can see the diff, and really what's going on here is a bunch of version stuff in the build script. So this is build up Gradle. So this shadow, a little bit of tech there. I was pulling in an HTTP client library to work in my mod. You don't want that to clash with any HTTP libraries elsewhere in Minecraft. So this shadow process just tweaks the package names.
Yep.
So it basically prepends US ForceCraft to everything. And then all of this version. So this is like the ripple effect here. So I had to use Comet D 3.10 or later. So I grabbed the latest 3.1, which meant I had to use like this. So this is Bio 3.1, Comet D 2.2.
And you just had to upgrade everything. Cascades.
So yeah, that's the old, that's the new, that's the old. Jetty had to go up 2 versions. So this is just the shadow stuff, those changes. And then, yeah, I pulled out the version. So again, pretty good idea is to make this kind of parameter like this. Okay, so I pulled it up from version 29 to version 46, whatever it is these days, 48. And then there were a few little changes down here. So again, the versioning stuff. Yeah, and these were the ripple changes in Jetty because this kind of stuff, it just kills me. Okay, we're going to rename it from set timeout to set idle timeout, just to make your code not compile anymore.
Yeah.
So I mean, what was the point of that? So anyway, so yeah, though, and really, it's not a huge amount. Does it have the stats at the top here? 123 additions, 67 deletions. So really, a few dozen lines of code, and it took me a little bit of tearing what's left in their hair out to find that. But that's a very typical. I mean, here we are talking about a Minecraft mod, and we're absolutely in the kind of enterprise development. You go back to something. So luckily, I wrote it 6 years ago.
Yeah.
You go back to something somebody wrote 6 years ago, and how to make a change now, and suddenly you're shaving yaks to make it work. But there we go. We love it. I always used to say, people would say, "Oh, this is really hard. This is really difficult." But difficult is what makes it good. If it were not difficult, it wouldn't be fun, and we wouldn't be getting as paid as much.
There you go.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, this was enlightening. Definitely loved having you on. Any last words? Anything you want to tell the viewers? Give anything inspirational?
Yeah, I would say, just like my boss Dave Carroll used to say to me, carve time out to do fun stuff. Even if evangelism isn't your job, if you're 100 miles away from it, it's still really important to keep your passion for this. And worst case, you'll try something and it didn't work, and you'll learn that thing doesn't work. Best case, you'll discover some great technique that can go on, and you'll be standing on the stage at Dreamforce explaining it to everybody else.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Pat. I really appreciate it. Once again, I tell a lot of the people that come onto the show, you didn't have to do this. You're going out of your way to spend some time and share with the Salesforce community. So I really appreciate it. And if we're just inspiring one person, then we've done our job there. So thank you so much. For everybody out there, all of this information will be down in the description down below. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Follow Pat on LinkedIn, Twitter, where I'm just going to throw all of his stuff somewhere.
Yeah, so basically, if you search on the web for Metadaddy, METADADDY, it's me.
We found
so I'm the same everywhere. Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it.
There it is. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, I believe in you.